The US economy is doing surprisingly well. Why?
When Trump came to office, there was a widespread anxiety that his economic program of tariffs and tax cuts would be bad for the American economy. Economists warned that his tariffs would push up inflation and slow down the economy, while his tax cuts would make the American tax system even more aggressive, while putting a potentially lethal strain on America's public finances. However, while there was some turmoil early on, in recent months the American economy seems to have stabilized and has actually been looking pretty strong, at least by international standards.
But I will instantly say that the US economy is always very strong, and the US economy is always doing well whoever is president. Doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or Republican. I feel like the S&P 500 is such an entity of power that it doesn't care that much who the president is.
So in this video, we're going to try our best to explain how the American economy apparently dodged disaster, and whether it can last. In the latest issue of our magazine, Too Long, we dive deep into the current state of America, discussing our real thoughts on the state of American
doing well, but not the citizens.
soft power, universities.
When stock markets go up, it's not like that the low-level workers really benefit from that so much.
To the EU. Find out more about Too Long, the end of the American order, by clicking the link in the description.
I can find out about Too Long.
So, let's start with a quick recap. Last year, there was a genuine sense of optimism among much of America's business community that Trump's promised agenda
We're gonna make Epstein great again
of tax cuts and deregulation would be good for the American economy. Trump had inherited a pretty strong economy from Biden, with the strongest GDP, productivity, and wage growth in the G7, and investors dismissed Trump's talk of GDP, the American economy.
I need it as a fucking sub video, bro. Imagine you sub and
Trump had inherited a pretty strong economy from Biden, with the strongest GDP, productivity, and wage growth in the G7. And investors dismissed Trump's talk of massive tariffs as campaign bluster, betting that, like in his first term, Trump would be sensitive to market pressures, which would essentially prevent him from doing anything too unorthodox. This is why ahead of Trump...
Insanity, though. Right? Just think about it for 1 second. For 1 fucking second. The biggest, strongest country in human history was led by a guy sniffing little girls, and now a guy who probably was friends with the guy that sold little girls. It's just fucking Bill Clinton, former president, on the fucking airplane. Literally proven, right? The biggest country in history. And a history of pedophilia presidents. Insanity. Pure fucking...
Trump's inauguration, like the dollar surged, with both the S&P 500, an index of the 500 leading companies listed on the US stock exchange, and the dollar index, which measures the value of the dollar against a weighted basket of currencies, rising after Trump's victory on November 5th. However, once Trump actually came to office, it quickly became clear that this optimism was misplaced. On day one, Trump started whacking tariffs on his trading partners, and it quickly became clear that Trump was genuinely committed.
Women in the MAGA corner always look like the evil women in the Hunger Games movies, I swear to God.
To his tariff agenda, and less sensitive to market pressures than in his first term, with both the president and senior members of his team dismissing the declines in the S&P 500 as
But he was right about that. It is just noise.
Similarly, it quickly became apparent that Doge, the main vehicle for Trump's deregulatory agenda, was both less effective than expected and also more focused on filling the civil service with Trump loyalists than actually cutting federal spending or red tape. The economy duly started showing signs of strain in March, when survey data suggested that both business and consumer confidence had plummeted, and that the Atlanta Fed's GDP Now forecast, a real-time estimate of GDP, suddenly started predicting a vicious recession. But things got particularly dicey on April 2nd, when, as you might remember, Trump declared Liberation Day and announced a flat 10% tariff on all imports coming into the US, as well as further flat tariffs on basically all of America's trading partners, calculated spuriously by dividing each country's bilateral trade deficit with the US against its total exports to give...
I mean, I always kind of understood that. So you're America or you're Trump, and you can literally name facts, right? I like facts, that you have a trade deficit with someone, right? I don't know what number you put on that, but a country is fucking you on trade. Like, simple mathematics. This country is making a net positive from trade with us, and we're not. That's not a good thing. I would agree with that. But first of all, how do you determine that? How big is it? And how would you fix it other than with tariffs? Trade deficits aren't bad. They're not a bad thing. You put billions going in from them and billions going in from you into them. I mean, I would like to see like it must be very hard mathematically. Does the US lose money trading with China, for example? There must be a guy who probably did a mathematics on that. Is there a plus or negative? Probably not, huh? Let me actually let's go again. Unlike Esmagold and Hassan, we always research our stuff here. The entire trade between the US and China, is it who has the more financial gain or overall advantages in this relationship? I think he's now going to look at like some kind of paper or something. Could be cool. I want to understand trade deficits more. Actually, brain dead streamer. Okay, sure. The US trade relationship is one of the most complex and significant in the world. It's probably very hard to determine this number. And we have to look at several dimensions: trade balance, economic structure, value chains, strategic advantages, and dependency. Trade balance, advantage for China. China runs a large trade surplus with the US. It exports far more to the US than it imports. In 2023, China exported 500 billion, so much money in 1 year, to the US, while the US exported 150 billion to the US. But again, that's not like a bad thing per se. This means China gains more in direction of financial inflow from trade goods. But the US benefits from these cheap goods. We're gonna get shopping. Möchte auf Ihrem Spielplatz. Okay, Lisa, I'm 10 minutes. 10 minutes. I'm done. Now I'm gaining viewers, man. I fucking want to understand you guys. Minecraft, no. But now I'm gaining viewers. I'm lately thinking, what makes viewers? And like the news and shit, you guys love that stuff. I think about this all day. People love this shit. The value chains and profit margins. The US had a disadvantage. Many Chinese exports are low margin and assembly based, like iPhones, stuff like that. US companies capture more value even when goods are made in China due to branding, design, software. Ah, that makes sense, yeah. Example, an iPhone is worth $1,000. May only give China up to $20 to $30 in value for assembling it. Ah. Services and IP also advantage USA. The US runs a service trade surplus with China. Finance, education, tourism, etc. US firms dominate in software, entertainment, biotech, and finance, and often license this technology to the Chinese. Strategic gains. China advantage. Yeah, since they're manufacturing everything, especially medics, they are at the source. If you would ever have World War III, a lot of this stuff wouldn't go to the West anymore. The US advantage, the global reserve currency, US dollar, means trade deficits are less economically painful and maintaining control over critical technology like semiconductors, AI, and operating systems. Also, they have more investment leverage. The US capital and markets are highly attractive for Chinese people. Dependency. The USA is more dependent on the US as technology, high-end chips, and global consumer demand, where the US is more dependent on China's manufacturing and rare earths. Who gains more overall? Short term, China, because of a surplus. Okay, that's what Trump would argue with. But long term, the US, because higher value added industries, technological leadership, control of financial markets, and more diversified trade. Important nuance though. Both countries benefit from this. It's interesting to me that when you read this stuff, that this free trade is so beneficial to the human race. If you wouldn't think in terms of US versus China, this is a beautiful thing, right? How you kind of have this. I mean, you have to be careful because there's probably a lot of exploitation. Chinese workers trying to fucking kill themselves because their conditions are so bad. So I will kind of come to a conclusion that China is not fucking over the US so hard.
A percentage,
What else can
which
Noodle say
Trump
about
then
this?
halved if he felt like it.
And then again, look! A second ago, I have 1.2k viewers. And it goes, something that never happened in the history of Twitch. Something is super fucked lately. It's like every time I go below 1k viewers, there's like a big purge. I was just 1.2k a second ago. What the fuck?
This sparked a steep decline in the S&P 500, which fell by about 10% in a week, as well as a furious tit-for-tat trade war with China. And by mid-April, both countries had imposed tariffs over 100% on each other, basically ending all trade between the world's
So we're kind of just learned that what they're doing for each other is really beneficial for all of them.
two largest
so
economies.
This trade war shit
However,
is
in
kind
the
of
past
dumb.
couple of weeks, the American economy has apparently regained its footing. The S&P 500 is back up to a record high. Inflation has only come in a smidge above the Federal Reserve's 2% target for the past 3 months, and the odds of recession have now fallen dramatically, with both the IMF and OECD now forecasting that America will once again see the strongest growth in the G7 this year. And while the dollar has still trended downwards, it's above the recent historical average. And while Treasury yields have tended upwards, they're still within the normal range for the past couple of years. Most recently, last month's jobs report massively outperformed expectations, with 147,000 new jobs added.
It often feels like all expectations are wrong. We're expecting a recession, so we're wrong. We think Hillary will win this election, we were wrong. We don't think there will be many jobs. We're wrong. There's a lot of jobs now.
In June, what the fuck? While other recent survey data suggests that business and consumer confidence is recovering.
Nothing ever happens?
What actually happened here? How has the US economy apparently survived Trump's tariffs, which economists almost unanimously expected to trigger economic disaster? Well, the first thing to say is that it's important not to overstate all of this. Sure, the American economy isn't headed for a recession, but its growth rate has slowed from between 2 and 3% to somewhere between 1 and 2%. It's also worth saying that inflation is still higher than the Fed's target, and it's expected to rise to nearer 3%.
I don't pay much attention, but every morning I open my news, right? And it's like, Trump is tariffing us, but he put a break on it. I don't pay much attention, but I always read, he put a break on it. We're going to wait 6 months, and then we're going to tariff them so hard.
Coming months. Some of this is also the consequence of Trump's constant flip-flopping on tariffs, which has meant that his most dramatic tariffs have either not come into effect, as was the case with his proposed Liberation Day tariffs on the EU, or has been wound down somewhat, as has been the case with its tariffs on China. To be clear, America's tariff rate is still pretty high by historical standards. The effective tariff rate currently stands at about 12%, according to calculations by the Tax Foundation, its highest in nearly a century. But the potential inflationary effects of this have also been offset by businesses who have tried to keep prices flat, even if they've been
it always reminds me of Putin and stuff. When you play Total War Rome, Total War Warhammer, every character in that game has a diplomatic reputation, right? If your reputation is 100, people trust you. You send someone in on an aggression pact, they say yes. If you fuck people over by not doing what you promise, your reputation goes lower. And once you have a low reputation, you go to someone, hey, you want to make a trade deal? Nah, we can't trust you. We don't know what you're talking about. And I always feel like with Trump and Putin and stuff like that, and it shows what a politician should be like. You should represent a bit of stability. You never know what to fucking believe. The guy changes his opinion every fucking week. You never know what to work with. You never know what the truth is. Thank you, Mavi. It's really hard, man.
By these tariffs. This is also because of front-loading, i.e. businesses stockpiling imports ahead of the tariffs. But also because even if they've exhausted these front-loaded stockpiles, businesses have so far been happy to accept lower profits rather than increasing prices, because they don't want to irritate customers when there's a good chance that Trump will reverse his tariffs later. It's also worth mentioning that quite a lot of this nominal growth is driven by debt-funded governments.
This is their video 3 months ago. Why America's economy is worse than it looks. Yeah, and the point is, I respect channels like this, and you can't really predict the future anymore, but that's just how content works nowadays. It's how it is, man. Everything changes every 2 seconds, man, in this crazy world. I won't even blame the guys.
Spending.
I won't even blame
Thanks in large part to Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, the US is expected to run a budget deficit representing between 6 and 7% of GDP for the foreseeable future. The relationship here isn't straightforward. It's not like a 6% deficit automatically adds 6% to GDP. But a deficit of this size will still create a pretty big boost to aggregate GDP, especially because much of the fiscal stimulus in the Big Beautiful Bill is front-loaded over the next year or two. And while Treasury yields aren't high enough to trigger an acute fiscal crisis in the near term, America's fiscal situation is still clearly unsustainable. But the final reason that the US continues to do all right is that, well, there just aren't that many better options out there. This is why American bonds, stocks, and the dollar are still doing okay. Whatever anxieties investors might have about Trump and his agenda, there aren't that many obvious alternatives. Europe is looking at even slower growth than the US, and no national bond market is as deep or liquid as the Treasury market. The CCP's penchant for capital controls means that China isn't the most attractive place for foreign investment either, and other emerging market economies are struggling to deal with turmoil triggered by Trump's tariffs. So without a clear alternative, America's economy will continue to benefit from its status as the go-to haven for foreign capital.
Let me check something. I just want to understand stuff. I haven't checked this in a long time. the dollar's doing well. Yeah, really. I mean, it's still probably it's easily the strongest thing in the world. Easily, man. What happened here? What happened here, man? Damn, they crushed it, dude.
This is a complex and nuanced story, though, and as such, there's plenty more you can read about it online, with 73 sources reporting on it.
Over.
The issue is, how can you be sure?
Again, man, I like TLDR. I respect them, but I often feel like they say nothing. Hey, here's some graphs. Looks like America might be doing well, but 3 months ago we said they didn't. It's a lot of nothing burgers. It's a lot of nothing burgers. What's this here now?
For most of the past few years, Trump and Putin have been...
burger. They change every week. I love Putin. We had a great gold vault. He's crazy. I fucking hate him. Like, what the fuck? No, it's all... What the fuck?
Remarkably chummy. In his first term, Trump described Putin as very smart, and originally even praised Putin's invasion of Ukraine as genius and savvy. This bromance continued into his second term, with Trump pouring praise on the Russian president, while attacking Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky as an unelected
Trump is probably
dictator.
Russian asset.
However, in recent weeks, it looks like Trump...
Or Vladimir has some documents, huh? What? Who knows, man? The world is crazy, man. Right? What if little Jeffrey knew some stuff, huh?
Has finally soured on Putin. So in this video, we're going to explain how and why the bromance soured, and what might happen next.
I remember years ago, many years ago, Putin said, if you don't leave me alone, there was something going on years ago. He said, if you keep fucking with me... Oh, I need to call the stream. My kid is waiting downstairs. Oh, shit. He was saying, I'm going to release data about 9/11. I have to go. My kid is waiting downstairs at 6 p.m.
She slipped through my fingers like sand. Heard that she had a man. Now I'm just sitting here sad. Oh, well, shit sail. She slipped through my fingers like sand.